Welcome to Going In Blind. I'm your host, Zach Tidwell, and we've got a little bit of a different episode today. We've got two guests on the show, and it's kind of an interesting backstory. We met 6 years ago when I was very, very new to being blind, and these gentlemen actually helped me make a knife because they are blacksmiths and bladesmiths. Ron Hardman is the founder of Kilroy's workshop, and they have three locations right now, two in Colorado, one in Texas, and they run blacksmithing and bladesmithing and maker spaces for smiths. To do all this stuff, they're teaching an important thing I think that this country is starting to hopefully make a shift back towards, and that is the trades. But we also have one of his shop managers who helped me build or create my knife on that day six-ish years ago, Eli Timm. But before we get into all of this exciting stuff, I do have a couple quick announcements as usual. Those of you who have been listening for a while know that there is a pretty crazy story behind this podcast, so I won't bore you with any of those details. But if you are new to the show, head over to my website at zachtidwell.com and you can see what I'm talking about. And when you do, if that piques your interest, you can also reach out to me for speaking engagements and join my mailing list there so that you can get updates about two big projects that I have going on behind the scenes. But with all that out of the way, gentlemen, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having us. This is amazing.
Yeah, it's a pleasure being here with you, Zach. I've been looking forward to this for a little bit now.
Yeah, I was actually, I can't remember because it's been a couple of months that I reached out to you guys, but I was supposed to come back down there recently, specifically at the Colorado Springs location of the Wounded Warrior Project and get back in there, but the event got canceled. So,
Oh, you were in that group.
yeah,
Oh, no.
yeah, I was bummed about it because there hasn't been any rescheduling or anything, but I'll get back there at some point.
Well, and so the coordinator left. So the current coordinator, if you know the contact in there, it was on short notice, and so we just dropped off the radar.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd love to get it back together again, though.
Okay. I just got connected with someone in that office. I'll reach out to her after this and see. I don't know if she would be the one who facilitates that, but she can probably connect you with whoever that would be.
That's awesome.
Because
For 10 years, for a decade, we've been working with Wounded Warrior Project, and it's like the highlight of the month for me. Getting to come in there and work with you guys, and it's amazing. If we work with Operation TBI Freedom, Liberty Foundation, SRU, VA, we'll done them once a month too. So,
okay. I didn't even know it was that often with Wounded Warrior Project. That's freaking cool.
Yep.
So I guess so that my very surface level explanation of what's going on at Kilroy's isn't, I guess, I don't want to not do you guys justice. So can we maybe lay out, I guess story wise, I'm also very curious to see how all this came to be, but maybe also lay out what Kilroy's workshop is. And then I want to grill you on why you started it and how, because
Oh yeah.
I didn't know places like that existed until I went there.
Oh yeah. No, so I started in an airplane hangar with a porta potty with myself as the sole instructor. That's how we started out. And that's actually when we first started working with Wounded Warrior Project a decade ago too. So I've been doing it for a couple of years, and Justin Martinez, the coordinator at the time, reached out and we got it together and started working on it. And so it was a blast. And Eli was one of my early students. He started with me when he was like 11 or 12 as a student in the shop, right? And yeah, he remembers the airplane hangar days. That's the OG network right there.
It sure is.
So we started off just teaching kids because there wasn't any place for them to go do this kind of stuff. It's dangerous, but not if you do it right, and so that's what we focus on. And it's the same thing like when Wounded Warrior Project comes in, or any of the other groups that we work with. Accessibility is there. You just make the right accommodations for it, right? That's the name of the game. And so in our case now, we've got over 5,000 students who take at least one class. By the end of this year, we'll have had 5,000 people come through our doors this year.
Holy shit.
Right. And then we've got Littleton and Texas. And so between the three locations, that's where we're riding. And we teach now because it's dramatically different than the last time you were in. We've got blacksmithing, we've got welding going from 3-hour classes all the way up through professional certification. We teach CAD, robotics, 3D printing, tons of 3D printing. We're actually 3D printing stainless steel on $400 printers in the shop. Did you know that we're making the Air Force Academy sabers now?
I know I didn't see that on your website.
Yeah, so we're doing that now as well as and then we launched a production company called Excalibur, and it's all being that production work's being done through there. We're doing digital art. We got an animation series that we're working on right now for kids even younger than that to see that they can get access to it because we've got about 40% of our students who are ADHD, me included. That's why you see me doing this with my hands all the time, and carrying out around a cup of coffee. And then about 10% are autistic. They're on the spectrum, ASD, and this is their jam because they can come in as active learners and just nail it. And it's just the parents haven't seen their kids like that before. So that's at the heart of it. And so I'll let Eli, anything to add to that, Eli?
I mean, yeah, just to kind of base it what on Ron's saying. I mean, the kind of the slogan that goes around is we might make metal things and projects, but I mean, at the end of the day, our product is people and community. That's why we're here. That's why we want to exist, is to bridge the network between whether it's autism, ADHD, military, homeschool, public school. We're there to be an anchor for the community, and we just love to be there for people in general. And that's probably the best thing I love about my job is connecting with so many people and being an outreach for so many people and organizations.
Yep.
And I definitely didn't expect for accessibility to be like this thing that comes up, but I want to take a second and talk about this because I think it's very important. And I've noticed, I guess on one hand, because I'm a software developer now, and now I make technology that is digital technology that is accessible to virtually everybody. Like that is what I do professionally now. And
Yeah, it's awesome.
but in these
I'm a recovering software engineer, so that's why I say that.
okay, and yeah, I want to come back to that too because a million questions came up in you giving the rundown of where everything's at today. But with this, I think this is a valuable thing for us to discuss because this is something that I think people even have a hard time comprehending when I talk about the stuff that I do for fun now, whether it's skiing or whitewater kayaking or whatever else these things that I do where people don't understand how it's possible. And even when I talk about it, like it'll come up in conversation and I will say, yeah, when I kayak, I'm in my own kayak. I do this. It's in whitewater. I know how to roll the boat. It's just someone's yelling commands to me. And then they'll be like, yeah, so when you go whitewater rafting with people and it's like, no, I said kayaking. I'm doing it in my own boat. And the same thing kind of happens with skiing where people don't understand. And I think I've talked about this a lot and thought about this a lot and realized, I guess, over the past in the years since we met, because when you guys met, I wasn't independent whatsoever. That was, I don't know, 6 months after I shot myself, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I was living with my parents. I couldn't do anything for myself. And so I didn't realize
Your dad was there. I remember talking to him.
yeah. So I didn't realize a lot of this stuff. And I guess this is what I've learned through experience over the past several years. A lot of these things in making things accessible to people is just finding people who are willing to take a chance on that person with whatever the disability is, whether that be a traumatic brain injury like you talked about or someone on the autism spectrum. Like it is, you just have to convince people a lot of the times, and then the person with the disability can show you like, okay, like you working together, you will find a way.
Yep. Yep. And I would even flip that a 180 because sometimes it's you got a place that has that ability, but I need somebody to take a chance on themselves.
Uh,
I need them to show up. You showed up, right? When people come into our shop, they get past that too. So that's where it has to meet in the middle. And this is where Eli was talking about community because we're doing it together. And honestly, it's not just whether you're blind or not, right? Or whether you're hearing impaired or whether you're missing a leg or sometimes it's emotional. I can't leave the house today, right? We have people come in with PTSD. I've got people who, there was a guy who came in a Wounded Warrior Project. He was called 15 minutes before the start of class because he was waitlisted. Somebody was a no-show. And he came back at 5 o'clock at the end of the day, 5 hours after we were literally closing down the shop. And he said, I just want to let you know I had been out of the house in 3 months. Had I had time to think about it, I would have found an excuse. I didn't. But he got out, he showed up, and magic happens because he's in community with people who give a rip.
Yeah, so I just recently had a woman on named Dr. Barbara Rothbaum works
Mhm.
at she's the founder and the executive director of the Emory Healthcare Veterans Program, and she's been innovating in PTSD, innovating and researching and treating PTSD since I think it was 1986, and they're having huge breakthroughs with this kind of flagship program that they run right now, and people need to go back and listen to that episode. But she talked about very specifically avoidance being kind of the crux of PTSD treatment as well, though. But it's like, so that for that guy to say that to you, I mean, it's interesting because it's like she talked about, she had a patient who came in. It was a veteran came in to her program, and prior to going through the program, like his PTSD had gotten so bad, he'd literally bought a mini fridge to bring in his room so that he wouldn't even have to leave his room, much less the house.
Mm.
And so it's how you said you started doing this basically 10 years ago. How,
Yeah.
I mean, how did all that come on your radar? And I guess even maybe before that, I want to know, because you said you're a recovering software engineer.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you go from that to opening up a blacksmithing workshop?
So my dad started off as a special education instructor. That's what he had his master's in. He had his bachelor's in industrial arts. And he switched to industrial arts halfway through because he found he got a lot of the same students coming through and they were misaligned. They were put in a special education program when they should have been in shop. For me, being ADHD, he told me as an adult that he would have diagnosed me as ADHD, but instead he diagnosed me as a shop class kid, and he used to bus me after elementary school over to the high school and middle school to go work in the shop with him. And so trades has been in my blood from the beginning. It put me through college. It kept me sane when I was writing software. I literally had a treadmill desk that I would stand at out in the office as I would type because I couldn't sit still long enough to do it. But you get in this hyper focus. So I get that part of it, but the trades never left. That's the part that kept me sane. And then having kids come in who were just like me made all the sense in the world. Right. And then so that was 13 years ago. And about 10 years ago, it was honestly Justin reaching out to me from Wounded Warrior Project saying, "Hey, can we do this? Here's the situation." And I said, "Heck yeah." I mean, this is why I exist, right? I mean, and Eli knows this, just like he said, we build cool things, but our product is people and community.
Yeah.
And so let's bring it in. You know, what my first class with Wounded Warrior Project, I had a gentleman who was in there who was hospitalized for 2 years and he had tremors. And he found that as he was hammering, the tremor stopped. He'd stop hammering, the tremors would return. And so it's discoveries like that when you start getting into space. There's another gentleman who came in. He was missing an arm at the elbow on one side, and he had a couple of fingers on the other side. And we made contraptions to allow him to learn how to weld. He had an assistant when he was forging, and he made stuff. Because at the end of the day, we all have stuff that we have to overcome. His is just visible, you know? And so at the same time, I've got people who come into the shop that are going through a divorce or they've got struggles at home, you know, and they come in there and they could take a vacation from their thoughts for a while. And that's that key component on there. And I mean, Eli gets to work with a ton of students, a ton of youth in the shop. He could tell you, like, they're carrying stuff too, right? So there is no person who isn't walking through our doors, including the staff, who isn't dealing with stuff. It's just some are more visible than others. That's it.
Yeah, and that makes sense. It's a creative outlet, but it's also, I mean, I was sweating my ass off sitting there making that knife.
Yes. That's how we distract you.
Yeah, so it totally makes sense. Were you one of those kids coming through those doors, Eli?
Um, I guess I was. You could consider myself one of those kids. Yes, I guess I was lost. I didn't have a purpose. And I mean, I was growing up. I was always really tired of the question. A lot of kids get asked this nowadays: is what are you going to do after high school? Are you going to go to college? Are you going to do that? I didn't have that answer figured out, and I feel a lot of people are pressured into that corner of you have to have this stuff figured out, or you're just not going to be worth anything. And so kind of being through Kilroy's and being under Ron's tutelage kind of gave me an outlet to not only find purpose, but to also breathe creativity into whatever I'm doing and to connect with other people exactly like me who are purposeless, who need direction, who need other brothers and sisters to lean on and have that sense of community to drive and help move them forward in life and to kind of have an outlet and almost a social life for people that don't know how to navigate specific experiences like that.
Yeah, it's just it's interesting too, and that's I guess I mean there were a ton of reasons I wanted to talk to you guys, but a part of this is also like a lot of stuff like this, like me not knowing that this existed 6 years ago or that anywhere in the world like this existed 6 years ago. Sometimes, I mean, people just need to know that this stuff is out there, right? Because whether it's, I'm sure we'll get into this later. Like you guys have been on Forged in Fire, the TV show that I'm sure somebody listening has definitely heard of that before. Because I'd heard of it when I could see, even though it wasn't like the kind of stuff that I would watch. But it's at the time now, I think as an older man, I think I would definitely get sucked into watching people do that stuff because I'm fascinated by how it all works. But it's just, and I think that was another thing that surprised me because I don't even know if you guys had the Littleton location when I met you.
Nope. Nope.
Okay.
So, matter of fact, even our Colorado Springs facility is 3 times the size that it was when you were there.
Wow.
Mhm.
Well, it's funny. I know someone that I can't remember how you guys came up in conversation. I think we were just kind of catching up. And she has a couple kids and we were catching up and I had asked her, I think just how everybody was going. And she'd mentioned, yeah, my sons are taking these blacksmithing classes now. And I was like, is it called Kilroy's? And it was, yeah, it's just small world, but
That's awesome.
it's, I would have thought like spreading the word would be such an uphill battle with that, but it doesn't sound like it if you're getting 5,000 people through the door every year.
Well, and most of that's word of mouth. I mean, the only ads that I run are Facebook ads. And that's occasionally, right? So, and that was only up until 2 years ago. I didn't even do that. And we had 4,000 people without really running much of anything. But really, I mean, one of the things to tie back in here is, from that upbringing that I had back when I was growing up, I'm 52, solidly Gen X. And, I never heard it from my parents because my dad was a shop teacher, but it was college or bust. Right.
Yep.
Anything else was a plan B. And, to what Eli said, what are you going to, where are you going to college? That's the question. But, and this is, I'm going to plug a book, but it's not, I'm bringing it up because it tells the story of it. So I released 2 books this year. One was called Forge Your Future, Awaken the Maker. And in there, I talk about how going the trades path is not a plan B. It's just a different plan A. And we need to get out of that mindset because we've got a lot of people shoehorned into college or bust. And you're less than if you don't make it through there. But we also have a lot of kids even before that, down in elementary school and middle school, who, if they're not, star pupil, if they're not number one in band, in star athlete or first chair in band and stuff like that, that what's their identity? What what do they have? Right? They're not a father. They're a son or a daughter, but that's not really an identity that they latch onto. Sometimes it's one they want to run away from at that, especially in those teen years. But if they can have purpose and hope, that changes a lot. And it's in that era, but it's also that military. It's also in the general population, right? If they've got hope and we've got some identity of this is who I am and I know that, that helps immensely. And so there's a deeper purpose there to doing the handwork because we were created to create, you know.
Well, and that's actually, I'm very big supporter of the trades and that same mindset shift that you mentioned and that I think is taking place. But I do think more of these conversations need to be had around the trades to continue making that happen. But also I hadn't thought about, like what you said, Eli, and I guess Ron, you just double tapped on it with the that question of what are you going to do after high school? I've always been aware that I was very fortunate with the parents that I had, but their thing was always, most of the men in my family have been military. So I just kind of grew up wanting to do that. And the conversation was never, you need to go in the military, but it was that you need to do something. You will not,
Yeah,
go out and just flounder. So,
sure.
I always had, I guess, even in that conversation, I guess the trades were probably never really discussed, but it was at least I had two options as opposed to just college.
Uh-huh.
But I also grew up playing sports my whole life. So that was my identity was the sports. I'd never
Mhm.
thought about it taking or that playing a role earlier on in life like
Mhm.
that. It's just, and that's an interesting thing because if you start learning a trade like this when you're 10 years old,
Mhm.
by the time you're 18, you have 8 years of work experience in a real trade that you can go do. Like,
Yep.
Absolutely.
unless you're a pro athlete, what else? Well, how else can you have something like that? Whereas a child, you were actually building your work experience. Like
Mhm.
it's so crazy. And what age group do you guys start working with?
So we go ages 9 and up.
Okay.
And occasionally, like if we got a small group coming in, we'll even take younger. But I'll tell you what, if I could, I would take preschool because with the neurodivergent population that we have, you don't become autistic at high school. You are younger. You don't become ADHD, or I call them my active learners, in high school or college to learn the traits. You are that when you're young. And if you can't sit down, shut up, and read War and Peace, um, then you're less than. And I hate that happens. And if I can get them into a shop space where they're like, I'm home, they've got other people who are like them in there as well. That's such an important thing because they never go down that less than path. It's like we're working with some groups with aged out foster care right now, and out of that population, there's about 20,000 uh, kids who leave the foster care system every year. Within 5 years, 40% of them are homeless, 60% are on psychotropic drugs. It's a massive population that needs to be reclaimed at that point to say you are not less than because you grew up this
Mhm.
way, but they're missing some key skills. The other end of that is if I can get them when they're not aged out, if I can get them when they're young and they can find community and they can find purpose and they can find hope, they don't have to be reclaimed later because they never go down that path.
Well,
That's where,
nice.
that's it right there.
Yeah, I think with that too, because of the way that you learn a skill like this, and the fact that is inherently there needs to be a mentor. Like
Mhm.
that can also play the role of providing some of the life guidance that these kids aren't getting if they've been in the foster care system. Maybe
Mhm.
like, and it's have you? I just found out about this organization this morning, and actually I reached out to see if I could get their founder to come on here. So I haven't heard back yet because it's been all of 6 hours or whatever since I sent this email. But
Yep.
have you heard of TACT out in Denver? It's
I have
teaching.
not.
Okay, it is. I believe the acronym is Teaching Autistic Children the Trades.
Okay.
And they are. I don't
Awesome.
believe they're doing blacksmithing from what I saw, but it seems like someone that you probably need to get connected with. I'll look up their information again and send
Okay.
it to you for after this. But I was curious if because that just reminded me that I had reached out to that guy when you were talking about all that. But
Yeah.
it's are you is there a means because I feel like the conundrum there with needing to access kids who are in foster care or
Mhm.
maybe have just had shitty, I guess if they have terrible home lives and they're not in foster care or haven't been taken away from their parents by the state, that they probably aren't going to have an avenue to access this stuff. But if there are kids who are in foster care or this vulnerable population, are schools like, are the school systems stepping in and connecting with you guys is there an avenue for any of that for them to be able to access this stuff before they're aged out of foster care, or is it all kind of happening after?
So Eli, do you want to tell them some of the groups that we've got in there?
Yeah, we've actually had a couple outreaches from public schools in the area. Kind of noticeably, one in particular is they have kind of a autistic ADHD specific group that they want to bring out on kind of our Fridays, and it's specifically for these kids in these public school settings that kind of don't have those avenues. And so these public schools are actually stepping in on these kids' behalf to try to find them avenues where they can excel and grow and feel like they have a home instead of being told to sit down at a desk, stop moving. And if you can't listen to the teacher or read your book or understand your literature book, that you're just less than somebody else in your class. And so these public schools are actually kind of coming around from the backswing of that pendulum and are reaching out to places like Kilroy's workshop to send their kids and gathering. It's not even public schools as well, it's even homeschool avenues. These homeschool groups have reached out as well, whether it's going to be just a group of parents or even organized groups to find these children avenues to pursue their individual skills as well.
That's freaking cool on a couple fronts, because I think even, if it's out, I guess with kids who've been through the foster system, yes, there is. I I I don't know how you wouldn't feel less than if you've been rejected or left by your family. But even with on this scope of kids who are still in the school system and maybe are just, maybe do you have autism, maybe do you have ADHD? It's more than just it's not just being less than, it's you are a problem if you can't sit. Or like you had talked about earlier, Ron, with being kind of, all right, now you're in a special education classroom, even though you don't necessarily, we just need to find a way to direct your attention. Because I feel like, and I'm speaking out of turn here because I don't have ADHD, but it seems to me like a logical approach to helping, I guess, where some of that stuff can become problematic in a standard classroom is that the kids aren't engaged and it's not
Yep.
interesting to them.
Yep. When I read, my dad taught me this, and I didn't know he was teaching me a workaround. But like when I used to read textbooks a lot and stuff like that. Now I love Audible.
Yeah.
I'm an audiobook hound, but I would walk and read. Or when I was writing books, because I wrote programming books and stuff like that, I would go to a coffee shop. So I had activity all around me all the time, but I didn't care about the conversations that were being had, so I could still hyper focus. But if I was at home, I'd go stir crazy in silence. And so it was those types of managing mechanisms, and you learn some of that in the shop too when you're there. So if I'm in the shop, I don't need distraction. I've got it everywhere, but yet I can hyper focus just like I did at the coffee shop. And so those types of coping mechanisms there, and I even hesitate to call it a coping mechanism. It's just a mechanism, right? I mean, what does somebody do who can't forge? I can.
Yeah.
And so what do they do to cope? So all of us have those types of things again. And it's just, I don't even like ADHD because it's not a disorder. It's just who I am.
Yep.
Right. It's not something that I caught. It's not anything like that. And it's a part of me. And whether it's an external condition or an internal one, it doesn't really matter. We all have stuff. And then just get into community and have fun.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes from our medical system is set up to pathologize things so that there can then be treatments to monetize and medications to monetize. And so I wonder about that definitely for ADHD. It's like, okay, that just seems to just be a different kind of person, not that, like you said, where it's not a disorder. And I'm sure or maybe that
There's a spectrum.
yes, I was going to say, I feel like the spectrums keep getting expanded with things. And I think it is to maximize, again, the treatments that can be monetized. It seems more and more people are getting diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. And it used to not be a spectrum. but the spectrum seems to keep growing and
Yeah.
growing to where everyone's like, oh yeah, I went and got tested. And I'm on the spectrum and I'm on the
Yeah.
spectrum and I'm on the spectrum. Whereas it used to be more, I feel like when I grew up, if someone had autism, most of the time it was like, yes, this person is nonverbal.
Mhm.
This person, or, I have a cousin who it was a lot more than just being socially awkward. Was very, he could be, it, social situations were challenging. Um, it,
Yep.
and when we start to broaden that, I have my suspicions as to where all that comes from, but maybe that's not maybe this isn't the conversation to go down that rabbit hole on.
Well, and so the way we look at so if somebody comes in and they're ASD, I can usually pick it out. We used to do respite care. So my mom worked for a place called Community Industries where she did care, during the day, the job site visits, stuff like that, with different types of both mental and physical disability. My dad, master's in special education. They went over to the Philippines and set up a special ed program. They did the same thing with an Awana program, a church group, and they branched that out. So that's kind of how I grew up. But we had a couple hundred people come stay with us through my childhood, with different types of disabilities, everything from the nonverbal autistic to, honestly, sometimes violent. And so we'd have to deal with that part of it, but 99.999% of the time, if you communicate in the right way, everything is fine. And so what we do to understand that is, if I've got somebody who's coming in who is functioning well enough on the spectrum to communicate well, we change the learning style to fit what they need. Again, we're making cool things, but our product is people and community. So what do you need when you walk through the door? You're the one in front of us. What do you need? And in those cases, if I'm communicating effectively, and we lay out, here is the path that you're going to go down, predictable, then everything is fine. Some of the environment causes some of the frustration on the other end of the spectrum, where they're not getting what they need as far as explanation goes. And that's on me as the instructor, not on them as a student. Right. And so that's how I view that. As same thing with ADHD. There are some kids who, like I had one kid. I always tell parents, if you want to bring them in and try them without medication, if they're on it, you're going to see a different kid. But I did have one kid that just said, so for safety's sake, he needs it for now, apparently. Go back and talk to the doctor, and work that out with them and stuff like that. But 2 years later, they got him off the meds. Whereas some of the kids can come in there, the different environment changes the different behavior, and they're there and they're in space that's meant for them.
Yeah, and I think, you mentioned maybe not even that coping skills was the right word there, but I've thought about this a lot I've had stuff that I've had to adjust for in learning how my personality's changed since traumatic brain injury, where it's not even a coping skills, it's things where I've learned about myself and that I now have to be aware of. And I now have learned, okay, what are the checks I have in place, or what could I do to yeah, maybe not, it's not coping with it, but just, okay, to set myself up for success with things. Like, okay, I can be very impulsive. That's it. Uh, having that awareness, and that seems like this is another avenue of this, is like kind of where it's also getting kids kind of still, I mean, yes, you're learning yourself because you're a kid, but also learning how to navigate those situations. And like you did, like with your dad showing you, like, hey, let's get some movement going while you're working to try and get you dialed in a little bit more. Like that, it's another very valuable facet of all of this that I didn't expect to come up today at all.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's that communication, right? I mean, you come in the door, you need certain things that somebody else doesn't need, and they need something that you don't need. It's a communication. I don't tell you what you need. It's me asking you, what can we do to make today successful? Right?
Yeah.
And then we work together on that. So I can say, okay, this is safe, this isn't safe. This is what we can do. Does that feel right to you? I remember we put a curl on the back of the handle so you had a place to grab hold of, and we could post your feet up by the anvil so you knew where you were standing at all times on there to minimize the risks. It doesn't eliminate things, but it minimizes them. But then at the same time, if you're like, that's not comfortable, that doesn't feel right to me, I don't understand this, we better respond in correct fashion to correct that piece of it so that it's a conversation. And that's at the end of the day what a teacher's supposed to do.
Can I add something here?
Yeah, go.
Yeah. So again, based on that communication thing, it's finding what that student needs, but it's also when they expand on those avenues, it's not punishing them for being who they are. Kind of going back on a story here, we had a student that took a handful of sawdust and threw it into the inside of the open forge just because he wanted to see what would happen. And in all reality, that's a massive safety hazard. But I mean, it would be a harm to the kid if we went up and completely scolded them for their behavior. Now we need to make sure like it doesn't happen again. But it's going back to that communication point where, okay, you did this because of these certain factors. Now, if you just came to us and asked us if we could do this, then we can do this in a safe environment and bridge that gap between acting out of turn and actually growing in that actual societal method and becoming learning. Again, I don't want to use it as a coping mechanism. It's just how somebody is, and learning how to be comfortable in their own personality in a public space.
Well, and I think you also touched on this was the idea. You said something to the effect of, yeah, that's what teachers are supposed to do. And I think that's another very valuable point. And I was curious, was that because that's to me seems to be an exception when that is the kind of teaching that is being done, and where it is realizing that, and this is part of why teachers need to be paid more, is you have to realize that these students are individuals and they're going through things, and that it is, some people learn in different ways, and but you guys, I guess, Ron, you learned that just through the respite care stuff, and then Eli, you've learned that, I guess, through having come up in it and now running the shop.
Yeah, well, at least for me, it's actually giving a rip about who comes to the door. I'm not just a teacher who goes in and gets paid and it's just another job for me. It's about caring for each individual student that comes to the door, and a big part of that is memorizing names and treating them as actual individuals instead of just a job, and allowing them to breathe in their own creativity and guide them and mentor them the kind of the same way that Ron mentored me. They're an individual, not just a job.
Yeah,
Zach, you did not have to introduce yourself to us. Like, I mean, when you emailed us about coming on here, we knew who you were.
Yep.
That was 6 years ago.
Which was crazy. Yeah, you said that you remembered, and I was like, I don't know how, especially with thousands of people. I didn't even know that I had no idea thousands of people were coming through the door every year.
I see people out in the grocery store all the time. Out of our staff, we got 34 staff, 32 started off as students. There's a reason.
Wow.
Right? They stay there, but they've got the same heart, right? Character first, heart of a teacher second, technical third. That's how we hire. And so when Eli knows your name, if he sees you out at the store, I've been to places before where they know my name when I'm coming through as a customer. And then if I see him over at King Supers, that's like I don't exist. That doesn't happen with, if it's the correct environment. Eli wouldn't do that to you. Right? Because you're the one that matters, not the clock.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's legitimately caring which is, I'm curious to kind of turn this on you two, because I think there's a core component here between what you're teaching and what, if you're a public school teacher getting to teach, I think probably, obviously, people who go to school to become teachers want to teach and want to, help kids grow. And maybe it's once they get into that role and are underpaid and underappreciated that it starts to suck some of that inherent enjoyment out of it that kind of pulled them there in the first place. Or even, I guess, another barrier there is you're assuming that when you go to college to become a teacher that you're going to enjoy the teaching, whereas this for both of you seems to be something that the actual creation process in and of itself is inherently something that speaks to you. And so I guess the role, how much of this, because I think this extra attention in the actual caring is a symptom of that and of it being inherently valuable to you, the process being inherently valuable to you. But how much of it, I guess, do you guys feel is the teaching being the thing that's giving you the purpose, or the act of being a creator in that way, or both?
Well, I'm gonna separate teacher into two parts. So there's teacher, the career, and then there's teacher, the verb. That's what you do. So if you're a teacher, even if that's not your vocation, you gravitate toward that. And so I call it the heart of a teacher. So when I hire character first, heart of a teacher second, I see it. I don't interview for it.
Mhm.
That's why I hired at the student body. So when I saw Eli just going over and helping people as a student, just because they needed a hand, he's got the heart of a teacher, and he cared about them. And that's that part. And then he loves showing them. He loves seeing them be successful. Their success is his success. He did that before I ever hired him into the shop.
Mm.
And so I think some teachers go into vocational teaching because it's a career. Some, the amazing teachers, go into teaching because it's a calling. And there's a difference. And I think every line of work has that. I mean, there were some people that I did software development with that never should have been software developers. You know,
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen the same, right? They're the ones who code the bugs that keep the rest of us in business.
Yeah, because they're half-assing things.
Right.
There's
Exactly.
always turds. Yeah.
Right. And so, but I think that's every vocation that's out there. But teaching is one that, you know, because it's a verb. I got into my 40s and I can look back at it. Every job I ever had, I ended up teaching. Not by mandate, but by that's just naturally where I gravitated toward, was teacher. So then what am I? I'm a teacher. No matter what job I've got, I'm still a teacher, because that's what that's kind of a calling in there. So that's where perspective and a little bit of time on your career does so good, because you can look back and see that. And sometimes it's obvious and sometimes it's not. Like I've got a guy named Seth, he's our manager up in Littleton. And when, like, he had never considered teaching ever, but yet he was verb teacher. He would help out no matter what. And so now he just needed the confidence to be able to do it from a vocational standpoint. And like I tell people all the time, if you don't have confidence in yourself, you can borrow mine in you for a time until you get your own.
Absolutely.
And so if we can instill that confidence in somebody who I already know is a teacher, they can turn that calling into a vocation. And that's what we do on that side of things.
Wow. Yeah, I wish. It's funny. You remind me so much of this gentleman's name is Joe Mornini. He is the executive director and founder of Team River Runner, which is the organization that is crazy enough to let totally blind vets get into kayaks and kayak the Grand Canyon and all sorts of other crazy stuff, which I haven't done that yet. I'm not good enough for that yet, but maybe one day.
Yeah.
But he was vocation was a teacher, but also when he was a special education teacher, and then he started Team River Runner 20 years ago, and when he speaks, what even the way he speaks about teaching kayaking is very similar to the way that you speak about teaching it. It's just like, I guess it's the most thoughtful ways that I've heard teaching being discussed. And I guess him and I, because he's been on here before, but we didn't discuss, I guess, the teaching side of things. And so, but it's just funny. Like the whole time you were talking, I was like, this sounds like Joe. This sounds like Joe. And it's just, I don't know. It's interesting.
That's the difference between vocation and heart.
Yeah.
Right. And I've met people who will never be vocational teachers who are teachers. They're just that kind of a person. They find other avenues to do it besides vocation. It might be as a manager of people because you're still teaching the people you're managing. You know, you got some people who are a manager by position because that's their title, and you got some people who are managers because they're leaders, and that's that side of things too. The leader is the person who gives a rip about their staff, and they're gonna teach them when necessary, that type of a thing as well. So it aligns with a bunch of areas of life, but it's that heart or that calling that is the critical piece on there. And again, when it comes back down to it, it's not about me. It's about the person who comes through the door. It's about you, Zach. When you come in, you're the person that we're focused on, and you're the hero in the story, you know? And so that's the focus there, because then if I can get that communication down, it doesn't matter what's going on. We're going to be able to work through it and get you to your goal. And your goal might be different than somebody else's. But we've got to know that, we've got to figure that out. And that's the getting to know you part.
Yeah. And well, and you're meeting people in potentially some very difficult places. Like I was, as you can imagine, not in a good spot when I met you guys, but like getting to be there and do that meant so much to me. And it just, I mean, I still have, I don't want to forget to show this thing. I've had this knife this whole time since, 2019 that we made. This was a railroad tie for people who were watching. At one point, this was the head of the railroad tie, and we superheated it and smashed it, and then twisted it into a device so it has this really cool handle. But this is what they had me make. I'm sure you can probably tell a blind guy made it, but
I don't know. I don't know, Zach. You amazed me.
is that better?
You amazed me 6 years ago when you made that thing. It is absolutely incredible. It's still one of my fondest memories. Honestly, working at Kilroy's workshop was helping you make your knife. It's absolutely one of my fondest core memories still to this day, and it amazing.
You that like a year ago, Zach.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So when you reached out, it was like, oh, that's so cool. And
Yeah.
with Eli being here and stuff, it was just amazing. So
And you had mentioned you have a picture of Eli and I together from making that. So people listening, when this comes out, I'll have that posted all over the place. You guys can go check that out. But I think it'll be cool to have up there. But I really, if you guys are cool with it, because I think we're like let me check the time here. I'm trying to see what. Yeah, no, we're not an hour in. Okay. Thought we were over an hour in, and I wanted to make sure we had some time to talk about the actual trade side of this, because I think this is another very valuable side of the conversation, and more where I expected this to go, which I guess I have a bunch of questions, and I'm not sure I'll be able to get them all out here because I'm not sure how they'll fit in, but if you've got thousands of people coming through to learn these trades, some of them obviously they're doing it more of a hobby. Some of them are going to do it a couple times and just see like, okay, yeah, this is cool, but this isn't going to be something that I end up doing. But for the people who are, maybe it's parents listening right now, maybe it's just someone who's looking for a new route, learning these skills and getting to the point where you can actually go out on your own and create things. Like, I guess on one hand, is there an actual path to this where, at some point you're an apprentice and then journeyman, and then you do become like a titled, credentialed tradesman in this space? And then realistically out in the real world, if someone doesn't have a shop like you where they're teaching or where they become a teacher along this path, like what applications are in the real world for these skills professionally?
So I'll take a crack at this one, Eli. So we've got multiple paths that we take, right? We've got our welding side of things. That's the no-brainer right there from a career standpoint, because the average age of a welder is over 45 right now. And if like my 52-year-old eyes couldn't be under a hood 8 hours a day, 5 or 6 days a week, I couldn't handle that. I would have a splitting headache constantly. And so what we do is We've got a 7-week intensive program. When landscape is food on the table and rent paid, get to work, right? So what we do is we focus on taking you from zero to being able to honestly pass an American Welding Society certification in a 7-week period of time. And we go a couple of days a week plus additional practice time included in that, and just go, 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 go through that program. And it takes effort. I tell people to treat it like a job. Show up 5 minutes early, leave 5 minutes late, do what you're supposed to do when you're there. And I'll be able to act as a reference for you because you've treated it like a job. And I've hired out of that program, right? Myself. So they don't know it, but the entire time they're there, they're also interviewing for me. And so that happens sometimes as well. But that pathway right there gets you in the door if you get the right mindset. And then, like I talked to actually a young lady down in Texas this morning on a Zoom call, and she's aged out foster care, and I was advising her this is the path you take if you want to get into it, whether you come to us or not. I wanted her to look at welding as you're not necessarily going out to be a welder. You're going out there with welding in your toolkit.
Yeah.
Be a well-rounded person in the trades. Learn different things. Be curious. Ask the right questions. Find good mentorship. Network, and find a place that has your mix of background plus welding in it to get into the job, and then work your butt off while you're there. Do what you need to do, and then you get into the space and they find out, oh, my word, she can weld or he can weld, and you could drive it that way. Some places down in Texas, they'll come in immediately, and if you've had any blueprint reading, then you can just do tack welds, so you yank you out to the pipe. You're off to work in pipeline.
Yep.
Because certain areas just need it. Back east, goodness, you go to the shipyards, they can't find enough people. There's such a shortage of people to go into welding out there that they will beg, borrow, and steal. They'll put you in paid apprenticeships. So you're RK Steel, RK Mechanical here in Colorado. It's the state's largest fabrication company, has a paid apprenticeship program that you can go in there and you can study and learn welding as you're going through. But you need to get in the door. I want to help them get in the door so then they can learn on the job and they get paid while they learn. That's my objective. So it's looking at that education path a little differently. Yeah. Where it ties into the blacksmithing then is metallurgy, the science of metals. Because if you're going to use a hot glue gun with metal, it's what we call our MIG welding. And so, because that's essentially what it is, right?
That's a great analogy. I've never thought of that before. Okay.
Yeah. And so if you're going to do that, you got to know what two materials are put in together. So scientifically, what is it? Why does it bond the way that it does? Because if you understand that, you'll understand better than why it's not working when it doesn't. You'll understand what role to play the weather has, the atmosphere has, all of that stuff comes into play, the gases that you're using. Because I don't want to send somebody out to a job site and have them ask a bunch of stupid questions. I want them to have a good baseline, and then to always remember there is no such thing as a C in welding. If you're going to a school where you're learning welding and you can get a C, run away, because it's life and death. Like we've had to re-weld some of the worst welds on things like a car hauler trailer this year, right, Eli?
Yep, absolutely.
Describe that trailer.
I mean, yeah, we took that work in, I think, early spring. And we were actually designing this for a wheelchair lift for handicapped people to get, like, a changing station for handicapped people that weren't necessarily always accommodated for out and about, let's say at a sporting event or anywhere else. You see these baby changing stations, but you never see adult actual handicap changing stations. And so we were working with a good friend of ours to design this trailer. But part of that was we had to remove the floorboards of this trailer to get down to the actual frame, to weld to the frame to actually make this structurally sound. But tearing out those floorboards, part of this trailer was, number one, not even welded, and number two,
was it?
And was kind of the worst bubblegum welds you've ever seen. And this is the stuff, brand name trailers that are very popular driving down the roads of America every single day, that can just snap and fail at every single time. And like Ron said, it's life and death. If that trailer breaks going down the highway, you're potentially killing somebody. And
Yeah.
that's the thing where that there's no such thing as in C in welding. It is life and death. You either pass or you fail.
Mhm. Yep. And with that, there's so much of that kind of stuff, not just in welding then, because like we're running CNC mills at the shop. We've got CNC plasma tapers, the computer side of it as well. There's a huge need in the trades right now because we've outsourced our manufacturing, and even the manufacturing that exists in country, some of that pre-work, like the tool and die maker stuff, is outsourced. And so all of our IP is overseas.
And being
So
stolen. Yeah.
and being stolen. Exactly right. And so it's not even just a day to day, I've got a job kind of a thing. That's it on a personal level that I got to pay rent. But it's a national security issue right now.
Yep.
Not 10 years from now. It's a national security issue right now that we can't get enough tradespeople, skilled tradespeople in here to do the types of things that are necessary. I went to the space symposium last year, and I went around and I targeted every manufacturer who was there, and I asked them what their number one problem was, and without missing a beat, every single one of them without fail said skilled labor. My second question is, what are you doing to help it? And that was crickets chirping. They didn't have an answer for that. They're relying on the schools to do that. And I'm saying that I can't come down to the schools. Public school, they're making a valiant effort to bring some of that stuff back, but they're short on teachers. They don't have some of the knowledge of how all of that stuff works. And they need to be, again, focused on the person, not just the thing, to help them find the right fit. We don't need a skilled worker. We need a skilled worker in the place where they're called to be, where they can do the good job. So you don't have the coder who's writing bugs all the time and going MIA on you. You got the welder who loves doing that type of a thing. You got the electrician who they just understand it. They're built for it. And that's what we need to get to.
Yeah, the C's get degrees things just in life in general bothers me. Like, I don't think you should be able to phone it in for anything that, is supposed to make you qualified to do something. I don't believe in that, but especially, yeah, that's a very
Yep.
great argument if you're building warships and you're half-assing your welds. Yeah.
And in shipbuilding right now, it's huge. I was talking to some folks at General Dynamics on the East Coast. They can't fill their apprenticeship program, much less their staffing. They've got 250,000 tradespeople that they need by the end of next year.
Wow. That's actually, I've been reaching out to some companies that are bringing unfortunately, I'm not getting responses, but trying to reach out to companies who are trying to bring manufacturing back to the United States in different capacities, including one there's a company called Boom Supersonic in Denver that is trying to bring back supersonic flight and commercialize it again. And but they're manufacturing everything here. And I think these conversations need to be had because people don't realize somehow, even after like COVID highlighted that these are national security issues, like our entire supply and manufacturing chains are gone from here and in the hands of who will probably become, I mean, who right now are adversaries, just not outwardly. It's all subversive warfare that we have going on with these other countries. But like it's dangerous. It is so dangerous, that and energy. But
Again, our production company, Excalibur, that's one of the things that we're doing is every location that we're spinning up with Kilroy's will have an associated Excalibur because we're training people who are right there. So I can open up an Excalibur to do our trailers, right? We can do that because the number one problem again is these manufacturing companies can't find skilled labor. Well, we're training the skilled labor. I would love to see every manufacturing company do what RK did, which is have an apprenticeship program doing the very things that they can be employed in afterwards or during, and just roll right into that. And I think that's a perfect marriage of on-the-job education and then national security, bringing that manufacturing back. They solve their own problem.
Well, why do you think you guys are so successful in getting that? I realize there can be a big difference between someone going through, I think you said a 7-week welding course and someone coming in for 1 or 2 classes just for the fun of it. But
Yep.
how how are you being so successful in work? I mean, recruiting people is not the right word, but in getting them through the doors to actually get into these programs. I mean, yes, these are people who want to learn and want to work, but like, I think somehow you're getting your messaging out there. And I know you said that it is a lot of word of mouth and Facebook ads, but like, there's got to be more to it than that, that other people can take away from this.
So when it comes down to it, I get 3 to 5 calls a week from schools asking how we do what we do. And I always tell them I'm completely open about everything. I will help them through the process. I actually founded a nonprofit called the Association of Independent Trade Schools to help with that. That's the point of it.
Okay.
And it still comes down to the person walking through the door. So we go small class sizes. And so like right now, our Monday, Tuesday class, we know them. We know what their goals are. Like one of the guys in there, he's not in it for certification. That's not why he's there. He wants to get better for himself. He's not looking at it as a long-term career, but he just wants to excel at it. I've got 2 other people in there that I think would like to be in it for a career. But, getting to know that about them and, where this really, where we can meet them in their need, that's the key. And so I think some of these other programs are just so voluminous as far as teacher to student ratio. Like we really don't go above like 4 to 5 students per instructor when we're running.
Yeah.
And so that's where we try to stay, because then we again get to know them through that process. And so building that relationship in there. And some people are that they find out through this process that they're not going to do that for profession. That's a good thing to learn in 7 weeks instead of 2 years too.
Absolutely.
Is that how long a traditional welding school is? It's 2 years?
Yeah, they've got 2-year and 4-year degree programs through community college. And then you also go and there's like other programs that are like 10 months and they're a deep dive into it, which is great if you know where you're headed already. But it's problematic if you don't. And so, because it's a massive time investment, time even more than money. When you start leaning into our least expendable resources or time, if you don't count air.
Yeah.
And so, but we never get that back. One of the wisest things that anybody has ever said to me in my life was like 25 years ago, a Starbucks barista who never thought it was profound, I'm sure. I bought a latte, and this will indicate how long ago it was. He said, "Thank you for spending $3.35 of your life with us." And I sat on that. I'm like, I exchanged part of my life that I'll never reclaim for that money that I turned around and handed this person for steamed milk. I will never do that again. So ever since then, it's drip, man. And so, but we exchange part of our life for whatever activity we choose. So best make it worthwhile, right?
Yeah, I mean, money is a stand-in for that, because that is you got
Right.
that in return for some value that you have, created or facilitated being put into the world. It's
And you took part of your life to do whatever activity that is.
Mhm.
So even if it's 10 minutes, I'll never get that 10 minutes back. Or if it's, if I'm spending $10,000 on something, how much of my life did I dedicate to earn the $10,000 to go and park with that? And so, when I'm talking to students who are doing this, the 7 weeks to find out is better than 2 years to find out. Or, in our case, we teach 3-hour classes. I'd rather have you, if you're unsure, come in for a 3-hour class and see if it even is anything remotely close to what you want to do. And then do a bunch of research ahead of time, because I don't want somebody to invest 7 weeks even into something that it's not worth their time, you know?
Yeah.
If they don't even want to touch metal again.
In the realm of everything that you guys teach with the CNC, the smithing, the welding, is welding the field that is most underserved right now in terms of workforce?
It's all over.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, smithing is, if you go into welding and you're going to go out on your own and make gates, learn blacksmithing. You're going to go from competing with Home Depot to doing things on that are, going to last hundreds of years down at the Broadmoor, or, it's restoration places and things like that. So learn both sides of it. Plus it makes you a better welder if you can smith. You just know the metal really well. So that's where some of that crosses over. But things like, we're teaching CAD, we're teaching additive manufacturing or 3D printing. We're teaching robotics. All of that stuff comes into play, and don't be one dimensional. Because I love it when, we're teaching life skills, and we've got framing, construction, roofing, plumbing, HVAC, automotive. We're learning all of these different types of things through this class for the foundation, or for that life skills class, all the way down to personal finance. And then next week, I'm working with kids on making a life blueprint, where we're going to go down through, here are the virtues that are important to you. Here are the roles that you play in your life right now. What's critical in that? Now here, let's lay out some goals for this coming year. Just three goals that tie back to your virtues and the roles that you play, and then the milestones associated with those things in order to accomplish those things next year. That's a life skill. And getting that broad spectrum of stuff is really important to me to teach people to do, but they can do it in self-study once they have the foundational elements of it.
Well, and that should be being taught in the school systems. Unfortunately, it's not. But like that is something that those types of lessons are like really part of what should still be in the school system. That's how you, I mean, you're supposed to not, I feel like right now, obviously I've been out of high school for, gosh, 11 years now. So it's, my water is probably a little muddied here, but you're just getting information thrown at you instead of skills, and specifically instead of learning how to think.
Yep.
That is, whereas like it says, like, you're very intentionally teaching people how to think. And that is an invaluable lesson that I feel like is probably that not being taught, or at least not being learned, whether that be in a public school classroom or in the house, at home through parents or older siblings, is where a lot of this lack of maturity comes from in young adults. And I say that being, I just turned 30 yesterday, so I realize I'm not a young adult.
Happy birthday.
So thank you.
Happy birthday. I won't sing.
I'm still around people that are, are mid 20s, earlier 20s. Like some of my opinions are probably because, my 18 to 22 was spent in the Marine Corps. Grow up kind of fast doing that, and then I've kind of lived the life of an old man through some of the other stuff that I've put myself through bad choices. So maybe I'm doing some of the old man, like back in my day kind of thing, but it is, I think there objectively is a lack of maturity. That I think some of that probably comes because people, again, aren't thinking properly before they make decisions, because they haven't learned how to think, because no one has taught them.
Well, I mean, it touches on what Ron already hit on, but I mean, it's we're not the hero of the story. Whoever comes through the door, they're the Luke Skywalker of the story. We're there to be the master Yoda. We're there to guide you in maturity and to allow you to make the correct decision for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a story brand. There's a wonderful book called Story Brand, and he talks about that in there, and it's what we had been doing anyway. But he brought up Yoda and Luke, and it's an incredible analogy. And so we talk about that in the shop all the time. Is that the whole point of being a teacher is to figure out what the student needs and how to best convey that message to them, right? So some people come into our shop knowing exactly the career path that they want, and we help them get there. Some people come in pretty sure, and so we help them figure out that in between. Like I had a guy come in, he wanted to go into welding. He had been a CNA, certified nursing assistant. He had worked in hospice. I mean, incredibly tough job. And this guy's like 27 years old at this point. And I sat down with him partway through the program, and we started talking about his resume. He's like, "I've got nothing for my resume." I said, "Are you kidding me?" Like he hadn't done welding or construction or something. But I said, Do you know how few welders have empathy?
Well,
I mean,
it's true.
you worked in a hospice for years, man. You just have to figure out a way to convey that, right? And to turn that. And so some of that coaching is we figure out where he's at and what he's doing, but then also then how to change that narrative. Like when somebody's coming in to and they want to land a job, we talk even about resumes, right? That's something that's just not taught very well either. Cause I always ask, what's a resume about? And their natural answer is, well, it's about me. But it's not. It's about the future employer's problem and how you're the best solution for that problem. But
It's
if
your
you
value
don't,
proposition.
it is. If you don't understand what problem they're having, you can't talk to them about how you can solve it. If you can convey that part, you got the job. And because I think only one person answered it even halfway correctly for me from the first initial question. That's who you're competing against. People who don't get it. I literally have had, like when I did tech, I had somebody write down in their objective that they wanted to buy a new car. I that congratulations, I don't care, right? I'm unless you're the federal government, you're not posting jobs because there's an org chart that needs to be filled.
Yeah.
You know, uh, there's a problem to be solved, and it's the same thing when you're going through that for work. You got to figure out those problems to be solved, and then that even then leans back into what type of training you're getting, because you want to go after the thing that's going to allow you to solve the problem of the most number of employers in the field that you're being called to, right? And if you can nail that part, then you got something.
Well, and especially with things, right? I think we're a long ways off from, I don't know, maybe I need to put an asterisk by that, the long ways off part, but things automation is creeping more and more into life. So the more that you can diversify what your skill sets might go to, and you've kind of touched on that a couple times, like the being well-rounded in different ways, whether that be complementary skills or even now and if you can recognize, if that gentleman can recognize the different ways that his skills do apply, then as the professional landscape starts to change more and more, he will realize, oh no, I am still fit. I'm fit for this too. Well, I can shift along with these times. And that's, that kind of change has always been around. We're hearing it.
Yep.
I mean, we're in the latest iteration of it because there's it's the newest iteration of technological evolution that's going on, but just
I got a friend of mine down in Texas. His name is Steve, and Steve Biggery. And if you're in the Front Ranger, if you've ever been to Mr. Biggs, he's Mr. Biggs. Yeah, he had a bunch of McDonald's here as well. But he was an innovator in the fast food space, where you don't think of that necessarily being necessarily an innovation zone.
yeah.
But he's working with AI in that space as well. And AI is here, regardless of what you think about it. Evil's been done in pretty much every facet of everything since the beginning of mankind. We make knives in our shop, and yet knives kill people, right? Internet does some tremendous things, and it does some awful things. AI, we've got to really watch it. But at the same time, it's here. And so even in the space of trades education, one of the three charters we've got for the Association of Independent Trade Schools is the ethical AI in the trades. How is it being employed? Not will it. It's already there. People don't
Yeah, and it is.
trades as
Yeah.
but it can be an enabler for certain things, and keep your eyes open. Like back in the 80s for me, when I was growing up, everything was like, oh, robots are going to steal our jobs. And did some of them go away? Yep. But ask any Blockbuster person who went to Blockbuster Video what they think about streaming and mail order DVDs, right?
Yeah.
Innovation changes it. The kicker right now is we are in the fourth industrial revolution. Learn it, figure it out. You don't have to adopt it in every facet of your life. I don't recommend having an AI girlfriend or boyfriend, right? But understand it well enough to know the pitfalls so you're not going to fall for the pitfalls. And even in the trades, when you're looking at careers and stuff like that, Have your eyes open enough to pay attention to it. Same thing with digital currency. Same thing with all of the stuff that's changing. It's just the speed of change now is so fast
Well,
that
and
it's insane.
is being in the trades, like, especially I guess in this context, because there's an intermingling of the physical skills and the technology that you probably need to learn how to harness. Is it, like, from being a software developer, that it is a constant, you are constantly learning. You have to, because APIs are changing, the new features are coming out in the programming languages or the front end frameworks that you're using, and you are constantly learning new skills and new technologies to keep up to date with your code base, which is an ever evolving logical document that is morphing over time. Is it very similar? I mean, it sounds like, I think what you said on one hand is a wise thing for people to be aware of in general, to not let yourself fall behind the curve of technology as it progresses. But specifically, is the trades similar to software development, and that is it is constantly learning in specifically to have to keep up with your peers?
It's just a slower change of pace
Okay.
because the life cycle of some of this stuff is different. And so if you take a look at the data center that's being built down in Texas, um, the only people who are there right now, besides some of the engineers and architects, are tradespeople. They're the construction workers who are doing that job. Whereas there are, like, talk to somebody in animation, and there are teams being let go because AI is taking those over completely. So the
Yeah.
speed with which some of that stuff is happening is different. Um, your plumber needs to be a plumber, you know.
Yeah.
A robot who can self-diagnose and get under your sink and do what it needs to do, or put in a new water heater or something like that. Not there. But you want to pay attention to it, and again have breadth to your skill. The other thing is the distinction between white collar and blue collar that's been there since before I was born. As far as I'm concerned, it's gone. It's you have to be able to cross over. And so if you're a computer programmer, you know, I think a blue collar in that sense is understanding the hardware side of things and
Hmm.
understanding the architecture to a large extent. If you're using AI but you don't understand LLMs, that's going to be an issue if you're a software developer, right? If you are a welder but you don't understand some CAD and some blueprint reading and that side of things, the architecture side of it, you're behind the curve.
And doing yourself a disservice.
You are. You need to
Yep.
be on top of that stuff because it's easy to obsolete you. And that takes, to your point about some people are just kind of going in, walking into their adulthood in kind of a lazy way. And we were talking about that earlier. It's similar here in that you can't afford to lazy your way into this. You have to be attentive to it, pay attention to it, apply yourself, and then you're going to be in the top 5%. The distinction between the top 5% and the bottom 5% really isn't huge. But it's attention to detail.
Well, that not harps on, I guess, I wanted to double down on something you said earlier and didn't get a chance to, and this gives me the chance to, so I'm doing it. Had mentioned when people are coming in and they are unknowingly, basically trying out for a job with you.
Mm-hmm.
That is a way people need to recognize. I mean, that doesn't just happen in your shop. That happens in
Nope.
everywhere in life. You should always be going through and treating it as if it's an opportunity, right? Like, do the extra work, do the stuff that you don't think people are going to notice, because people are
Yep.
going to notice. Someone's watching. They will notice that extra work, that extra hustle, and that's why Eli is now running the shop down in Colorado Springs. Like,
Exactly right.
yeah,
And so Eli's first class with me, do you remember the first class you took with me, Eli?
I do.
What was it?
cleaning the boy bodies.
Close, but it was forging nails.
Yeah. Do you remember what I said? If you take a nail and you forge out a nail and you hit it flat on top, how much is that worth? Do you remember what I said on that? I used to say this all the time. This one class, I'll forgive him if he doesn't remember.
No, I don't.
But
Unfortunately,
that nail with a flat head on it is worth 50 cents. But you turn the hammer over and there's a round side, and you hit it 4 times around the top, and you're finishing it off. That's your $1.50. That nail went from 50 cents to $1.50 with 4 hits of the hammer, because now you can sell it to a crafter, because the only thing that they see when they sell an item is that nail head, and it's got 4 flutes going around the outside of it, and they can upsell their item by $15, right? So my line back then was, give me your $1.50, no matter what you were doing.
Yep.
Go from 50 cents, the bare minimum, then you got a nail, but give me your $1.50. Go the extra 4 strikes. And that's literally the difference between the bottom 5% and the top 5%. Give me your $1.50. I just do a bumper sticker like that. Give me your $1.50.
well,
It's a good slogan. But I use that all the time to just say, finish it. Finish what you started. And then, I mean, even in business, right? The difference, if I've got 2 people who, one is a success and one goes out of business, largely the difference is this one got up one more time. They finished what they started. Right? Yeah. They gave their $1.50. And so there are lots of lessons in the trades and trade skills, but that's one of them right there. The difference between that Home Depot competitor, fence maker as a welder, versus the one that would go down to the Broadmoor or some fancy place and make signs for 20 times the value.
Yeah.
The difference is they gave their $1.50.
If if you weren't teaching all the classes that you do, if you were just running a shop and you had all the, you've done your due diligence and keeping up with the times, you've got CNC machines and in a background in that, and the, what did you call the additive manufacturing with the 3D printing? Is that what it was called?
Yep.
Is there, I mean, it seems like there's a real, you could have a business just doing that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So
you would be packed.
Okay. So that is a viable path forward in life. If people don't want to just do welding or something and move forward with that, I mean, this is a real thing. Okay.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. Goodness. I mean, everything from handyman all the way up to running larger construction things where you sub it out. I mean, knowing even in the community, you can pull 5 or 6 people together. You don't even have to have staff. You just have tradespeople who have different skill sets, and you put together a co-op. That's a viable thing to do. You don't have to just go work for a company. You can be self-employed and get crossover that way.
Yeah, I meant more so in the context of smithing and as it stands today, because I realize that there's obviously the more technological components involved than just smashing stuff and shaping it into handcrafting stuff. But okay.
Yep.
It's just, that's something, if this podcast ever takes off, I have thought about this, because I've been getting feedback from people like, you need to get a more exciting background. And I have other rooms in my house that I could move the recording setup into, but I was like, it would be cool to have something on the wall that you guys have made. Like, once this thing if this thing ever gets to where it's making money, but yeah.
You like to make you a sword.
Maybe so sweet.
Actually, you know what? I take that back. You and Eli could make the sword together.
Yeah.
How about that?
That'd be cool.
even better.
We'll get your butt back in there again and teach you the power hammer.
Get a crooked sword on the wall.
That's why he's there. Well, you know what? It's called a saber.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah,
Right? Do a katana. Katana, man. That's actually how it started. I'm just kidding. That's not how it started.
No, that's so cool that you guys are going to make the sabers now for the Air Force Academy too.
Mm-hmm.
It's freaking cool. But what else is coming down the pipeline for you guys? I mean, you've got all sorts of these classes that people can check out, and that's it. If you tell everybody your website, but
So kilroysworkshop.com. And then for the homeschool community, we actually have a mechanism that kids can take a class with no charge with us for the entire year. And that's through Kilroy's workshop, hse.com, like homeschool educators.com. So Kilroy's workshop, hse.com. And we're going to open up registration in January to include now Parker in that as well. So we've got Littleton, Colorado Springs, and Parker in 5 core content areas. And again, to be able to do that stuff where the parents don't have to pay out of pocket. You know, you talked at the very beginning on how can somebody do this if they can't afford it. There are mechanisms for that. Just like that, young lady, she's in her 20s, aged out foster care. She's coming to us with something that we arranged with somebody for a scholarship. And that buddy of mine, Steve, down in Texas, is on the board for that organization. It's a tremendous organization that helps aged out foster care people. So no matter what your background is, don't let that get in the way. Reach out to us, and we'll figure out ways to get you in there.
Yeah.
And I oftentimes run like buy one, get one specials too. So if it's just a tight budget, these BOGO deals that I run, you can buy a gift card and get double the amount. That cuts your cost in half for doing this, which is basically our
Yeah.
cost.
Wow.
So I run those on a regular basis to help people out too.
And when you say you're adding it to Parker, is there a new facility?
There will be. I got a text message before coming on here from a realtor that says that we might have our space up there. So that's not going to go until probably summer to fall time frame
Okay.
for next year. But we've got a long lead time to build everything to that. And then we were looking at possibly Westminster as well, but Parker's almost the guaranteed spot, and then Westminster would be the nice to have on top of McKinney and Littleton and Colorado Springs that are already out there.
Gosh, I feel like that freaking logistical nightmare of trying to get all the equipment in there and everything has to just be something people I wouldn't want to have to deal with, I guess.
Yeah, it's not too bad because you figure again, airplane hangar and porta potty. I don't measure our growth based on number of bathrooms or square footage. I base our growth based on number of indoor bathrooms
Yeah.
that I don't have to clean all the time.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, what else? What have I not asked that I should have asked here?
Eli, what do you think?
I don't know. I think you've covered it pretty dang well from all the way from the community side to the kids coming through the tour, the growth, the trades, all of that it's kind of a melding pot of the mission of behind what we're trying to do. It's finding people and gathering them together to give them not only purpose but their forward momentum into careers that aren't again I guess horseshoed into this corral of thinking that if you're not going to go to college, I mean you're worth less than somebody else next to you that does go to college. And it's finding those avenues for people to really extend their creativity and become comfortable with who they are just in their own personalities.
Yeah, and I mean, this conversation went in so many directions that I didn't expect it to, and I think that was just it. Did such a great job you guys did of painting the power of a program like this, and this is just and that people can take away from that like okay, maybe the different skills you guys are teaching here doesn't resonate with them, but those same takeaways can come from adjacent programs or adjacent pursuits. Like and again, it's your guys' passion coming through and all of it. And it's just the very thoughtfulness. It's very obvious thoughtfulness behind the way that you approach these things and why you're doing it and how you're doing it and why you've chosen to do it that way. And it's just, this was a blast. I've been excited about this for months. It's for us to get to talk. So this is just
This has been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
But I mean,
And what you'll find is you've got like-minded people all over the country. They need the courage to go out there and actually start their own thing. It doesn't have to be doing blacksmithing. I call blacksmithing the gateway drug of metalworking.
Yep.
That buddy of mine down in Texas is actually helping us set up the Texas operation.
Okay.
There's always somebody um, around like Steve down there who's got a heart for it. Steve's son is actually now working for us down in Texas. His daughter, Anna, she's a sweetheart of a girl. She's autistic. He gets it. People all over the country get this. We just need to set up the environment for it. Not we as being like me and Eli, but just in general, us as a nation needs to set this up for the personal side of things, but also then you translate on the larger scale to the national security side of it. We absolutely need this stuff to go this way so that um, so that we can build for the future. No pun intended.
Yeah, well, and this really everything that we've talked about today is more pertinent now than it ever has been. It is. So I appreciate you guys, what you're doing, you taking the time and coming on here to share it all. And I am so excited to see how this continues to just bloom. Like this is an exciting time for you guys. So thank you so much.
Yeah,
Lot of
it's been
fun, man.
a blast being here.
Yeah.
All right,
And
sir.
thanks everyone at home for listening to another episode of Going In Blind. If you've sat and listened through the end of this one, go back and listen to the very beginning. I think we touched on something very, very something that needs to be emphasized a little bit more and probably thought through. You've heard me talk about some of the things on this show that I've done, and really the way that it's received by people. Honestly, a lot of times when discussing my blindness or the other things, that have come up alongside my disabilities or the diagnoses with Huntington's disease, like it's people seem to get almost horrified on my behalf sometimes and thinking that I have this shitty life, and it's not. And it's because there's people out there like these guys who are willing to take a chance on people and let them, try things and maybe mess it up and learn from that mistake in a controlled environment to get out and go back skiing again or create something with your hands or go whitewater kayaking and all the things that we touched on. So I just listen to this one again and share it around with another curious mind who needs to hear it, because that's what this is all about. And I'll see you next time. Bye.